The first one was back in 2020, our very first application for broadband expansion. And that was to construct 7 towers and co-locate and construct 7 towers throughout Kewaunee County, of which then Kewaunee received $960,000 in PSC grant money. The county then loaned Bug Tussle $960 as well to be paid over time. That phase has been completed. In fact, we have constructed 9 towers with the 10th one on its way as soon as we can get the approvals. Phase 2 was for a 61.7 mile middle mile fiber throughout the county that was going approximately from roughly Dykesville over to Algoma. Then that would bring over Algoma over to kind of Casco and Luxembourg, and then down through to Kewaunee, and then from Kewaunee down to Tisch Mills. Currently, that has been slightly delayed. We do have the Norman OLT, which is from the south of Kewaunee down to Tisch Mills. That is live. We do have a conduit that is in the rest of that fiber route. We're trying to work through getting that fiber through. I know that there have been some delays for a number of different reasons, some of which we've talked about in the past, having to do with subcontractor work, but is still something that we are fully committed to having completed by the end of 24. The third phase was a PSC grant for roughly about $1.3 million, what the PSC had awarded. If you remember, it was, I believe, August, when CEO Jason Weed and Mitch Olson, our Chief Development Officer, as well as our outside sales rep, Scott Naskovitz, had come before you and talked about where we were kind of at, and how through miscommunication and a mistake, we felt that it was best that we return that PSC grant money back to the PSC. So that has been put on hold until we find another way to fund that, whether that is through PSC funding or whether that is through some type of arrangement that Bug Tussle can work out either with Kewaunee County or otherwise. So that's kind of where the projects are right now, but I know that there's probably some questions, but I'll touch on probably a couple that are already there that we're aware about, that we are aware about. There are a number of customers that when we were doing the conduit, their yards were disturbed and their yards were basically torn up, and there has been a lack of, what do I want to call it? A lack of focus on replacing and fixing up those yards. And that is very legitimate concerns that a number of residents have. We have been made aware. We have tried to work through our subcontractors to get those lawns repaired. That has not come to the result that we'd like. It is my intention in my position that spring of 2024 that we address those concerns and fix up all of those yards, because that has taken too long for that to be done. We are hoping that those folks that were responsible for it would do it. Hasn't been done. Ultimately, we're responsible for it. So that's what we will be doing. So I'll leave it for there because I'm going to guess there might be specific questions, and I'll leave that there.
Questions? Supervisor Kroll.
So there's an area that they ripped up, and when they came back to cover it up, they said they put boxes in and they didn't put the boxes in.
I remember you telling, yes, exactly. And what we've learned is with a couple of our contractors in other counties, that was the same type of thing. And so what we've done now is we have, first of all, we have acquired our own contractor, and we have been doing audits of the work that some of our subcontractors have been doing in other areas. Kewaunee is one of them. And we have seen that work that they've said they've done, they have not done. And ultimately, doesn't matter. Ultimately, we're responsible. So we know that we need to fix that. I remember the conversation that you and I had where they took it one, they just went over to the other side of the road and just tossed it. And so, again, we will be addressing that because that can't continue. Or it won't continue.
They also cut lines and then buried them. So the lines never connected. They're cut and they're buried.
Correct. What they had done, what we've seen from some of the projects is prior to having our own major contractor is there was work that needed to be done throughout the county. And so we had a subcontractor that would do a piece of work here and then a piece of work here and then a piece of work here. But then what would happen is none of that could get connected so you could turn that fiber on live. And what we have now is we don't allow any of that. What is going to happen for any subcontractor is work's going to be done. It's going to be from point A to point B, and that has to go until that is live and online that we can serve customers. Otherwise, we don't let them go any farther because then we have these partially done sections throughout the county of which that doesn't help to provide service to customers and it doesn't get us the work that we need done.
Well, and my concern is that you ripped up some of these yards. They didn't do their job.
Correct.
Still not fixed. And then you're gonna re-rip them back up to fix them.
Depending on what needs to be done, yes.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate, but then I'm not gonna tell you that something's not true. I'd rather rip the yard back up, fix it correctly, but then more importantly, fix the yard.
Are you certain that you are gonna have this job done for 2024 or not?
That is absolutely our intent. I mean, I can't specifically say only because you never know what happens that when we're talking about conduit and fiber and the like, that if you run into rock, that can make things more difficult. But I can tell you that since starting my new position, there is definitely, what do I want to call it? The issue has been raised and brought to a level of concern that we know that something needs to be done.
So now some of these
Absolutely.
people that went ahead and they signed up to do the fiber optic and it's not done, are they gonna have to re-sign back up down the road?
I'm sorry, you're talking customers?
Yes.
Okay, so with customers, if they've signed and we haven't provided service yet, do they need to re-sign back up? No, they don't need to re-sign back up. But we will contact them only because of the delay. I think it's the only fair thing to do.
Supervisor Augustine?
On phase two, Scott,
Mhm.
talked about the 67 miles of fiber that was delayed to the end of 24. Can you just touch base, and maybe you did a little bit here, but as to why it was delayed? I mean, it seemed like we went gung ho and then all of a sudden everybody left the county and a lot of customers were asking what was going on.
Right. There was, again, probably a couple different things and it'd be much easier to do on a whiteboard, but a lot of what we were seeing past in doing what I would call a performance audit is let's just go down highway A. And so what would happen is we're doing highway A, but then there's also some stuff on highway S, and then there's some stuff on highway C. What we'd have is we had a subcontractor that would do just the putting in of the boxes or just doing some of these different pieces, but it wouldn't be the handhold, the conduit, the fiber, the splicing and the like that all, let's say it takes 4 different things to make a fiber run go live that it could now be turned on and start to serve. Well, we'd only have subcontractors doing 1 or 2 of those things, but throughout the whole county, and therefore that doesn't really get us where we need to be. Was some of that work done? Yes. But as Supervisor Kroll had said, some of that work wasn't done and they said they had done it, and we're doing an audit in that respect as well.
Supervisor Lukes?
So you're saying that some of the conduit that's been laid, not all the conduit has fiber.
Correct. Correct. We know we have fiber at the Norman OLT, which again, if you get your county reports, show that that is a segment, a line segment that goes from roughly south of Kewaunee down towards Tish Mills. And I have a map that I can give you afterwards as well. But that's in your monthly report that we provide on a quarterly basis. I'm sorry, it's not your monthly report, it's your quarterly county report.
These are
We plan on putting all that stuff in when it gets warmer now, and so that would be spring of 24 throughout the end of 24.
Supervisor Augustine.
Scott, could you touch base on how many customers that Bug Tussle has and how many we're bringing on a month along those lines? Because I know Starlink is starting to take off, and I think that's going to be a little bit of a concern to try to compete with Starlink in the area.
I'll be honest, from a Kewaunee standpoint, I'm not worried about Starlink. I can tell you again, now starting with my new position, Kewaunee County has roughly 10% of all of the subscribers of Bug Tussle. We know that of the towers, we're having 50, 60, 70, 80 subscribers per tower. So we're well above average as to what's needed. So from a tower standpoint, Kewaunee is very strong. The part where we're a step or two behind is from the fiber standpoint, from the OLTs. And so Bayview, I want to make sure I have the names right. Yes, Bayview has like 120 subscribers. And you have a number of others that are, like I said, 60, 70. I believe there's roughly about 900 plus subscribers in Kewaunee County.
Yeah, other questions?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to guess there's rumors. So I'll try to answer some. And if there's others that you heard, I'll try to answer them because I've had this in other counties. Bug Tussle is not bankrupt. Bug Tussle is not going out of business. There's none of that. I'll give a perfect example is just in August, Fond du Lac, Outagamie, and Oneida did a issuing of bonds for $58 million for Bug Tussle to do projects within their county. In that same respect, you may have read in the Green Bay paper that Brown County is giving us their community accessible network, BCAN. Not only are they giving us the network to manage and oversee and own, which is roughly about 120 miles of fiber throughout Green Bay and the surrounding areas. They've also provided a loan to Kewaunee County of $27.2 million for 15 years. So what I'd love to do and what we're going to be trying to do is I want to talk to counties like Kewaunee as to how we can continue to not only work together, but maybe even accelerate what we're trying to do. Because I want to talk about, and here's part of, I think, the issue as well, is that the project is, I'm going to guess a number of your constituents see the conduit going past their house and going, when can I get hooked up, right? But I want to remind the supervisors as to what the grant applications were and what the original purpose has been for the grants. And they were for middle mile fiber, for a backbone, or what we call middle mile. The fiber to the home is the last mile. Now we've done a little bit of that in Casco and a little bit of that in Luxembourg, but that had never been what the original intention was for those grant funds. We'd love to work with you on trying to then provide that last mile. But currently, from what the grants are, it was never designed to be for the last mile. So I just want to give the gentle reminder that that was the original issue, was to do middle mile fiber, which would actually, with that middle mile fiber going to the towers, be able to provide even better and stronger access to those wireless customers.
But the phase two, that was granted, right? I mean,
Phase
that
two
was
is-
grant money.
Yes, phase two is granted. That was roughly about $1.4 million. And again, that's middle mile fiber.
And we're looking at end of 2024 on that.
That is our intention, yes.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
I know that there's people that are confused. When you say middle mile and final mile,
Mhm.
define what it is.
Okay, so I'll think of it as this, think of it as a highway. It's easiest to do it from roads and highways. So think of a major thoroughfare through, think of a major thoroughfare through a city. So a Ellis Street. But then the side streets are what gets you to the homes. So Ellis would be kind of the middle mile, and then you would branch off of that middle mile to go to the last mile, which is to the home. So what you usually have are three main things. You would have your Highway 29, then you'd have Ellis Street. I know they're the same, but work with me. And then from there, you would have First Street, and that First Street would then go to the homes. Supervisor Lukes.
The last mile, let's say the road right away to the house, correct?
Correct. That's a drop fee. Yes.
So there's no cost to your company for that.
Oh, there's still no, there is a cost because you think of the cost of if you're going from the street to the house. And for some of those, and I'll give a perfect example, is that what you usually see is if it's one of the largest, what they'll do is they'll do what's called a temporary drop, where you'll kind of see this cord going from a box to your house. And that's temporary until they have someone then come in where they will then trench that line into your yard, but it has entered your house. Now, depending on where you are and where you live, it's much easier in cities and villages where you have a lot of homes next to each other. But think in the rural homes where rural places where you have a house that's 300 feet away from the road. Well, that's a distance that has to be trenched. And then depending on where they are and what they want to have happen, we want to work with the customer as to where does that fiber line go? Sure, we could have it go straight to your house, but that could be going through someone's vegetable garden or flower garden or putting it underneath someone's driveway when we don't necessarily need to do that. So there is a cost because the line still has to be trenched and brought in, as well as the staff time and equipment time. And that's true of any company.
I just have one thing to say. I don't think it's all rumors. I think there's more where people had their yards dug up, at least from the phone calls I received. They had equipment in their yard. They had lines that they didn't know what they were.
And that's not a rumor.
And yeah, that's not a rumor.
Nope, that's not a rumor. I
And-
won't say that is.
Bug tussle kind of, it's still sitting. There's
Correct.
areas still sitting. So I think it's more of a concern than all rumors. I think
Correct.
then, it'd be nice if bug tussle can
Yes,
fix some of this. That's what I'm saying is at the same time, if this is all not right, they still have to go back in, redig and refix.
yes,
So-
we do. And that's
Um,
where, I'm sorry, Supervisor Kroll, I interrupted. I apologize.
No, I'm just saying that I don't think it's all just rumors of bug tussle going bankrupt. I think it's more concerns.
Well, then I appreciate that. And the concerns are absolutely legitimate. The ball was dropped. We felt we had a subcontractor that would do things the way they should. We've had some difficulty with that, but we will fix it because we have to. We made a promise and an agreement with the county, and we'll do that, and we will fix it.
I do have to say, I don't think anybody had more phone calls than I did on
Especially in
Yards-
Luxembourg, Mr. Chair.
yards being torn up, and I
Mhm.
have to say that has improved. I mean, unbelievably. I have not, maybe it's because of the weather turning now. I don't think so, but they've made a have made a very strong effort, and that's been getting a lot better in Luxembourg. I'm very thankful for that.
We've tried to do a couple things, Mr. Chair, and you're probably aware of a number of them. One, and we're probably going to do the same thing that we had done previously. We had put ads in the paper and had an email address and a phone number, so that way we could address some of those things. And some of those concerns have been addressed. But I'd be lying to you to say that they've all been addressed and that they've all been addressed adequately. So those need to be done. Absolutely, they need to be done.
So the other thing that keeps coming up for me though is, the timing of the fiber and what's happening on the fiber and will the fiber happen? Well, I guess that's phase 2, we have an answer, end of 24. Phase 3, well, that's just basically on hold and there's no timeline at all on that, right?
Correct, because at least for right now, if we remember what the grant was originally what our offer was that we would borrow $1,475,000 from Kewaunee. We would get that same match from the PSC. We would put in our own, and then we would finish up the other 62.5 miles of middle mile fiber as well. But because we withdrew the application, returned the grant award that hadn't moved forward, I would love to have the discussion with this committee and the board of potentially seeing if there is any appetite of trying to do something, whether to that same degree or to a different degree. I think what has, at least when I was administrator, what was probably one of the most attractive parts of Bug Tussle's offer is that all of the money that was put in by the county was returned completely and with interest. And at least to my understanding, knock on wood, we have made all of our loan payments and will continue to make all of our loan payments because that relationship is very important. Sorry.
How far are we into those loans, Paul? I know that they are current because I did check on that before this meeting.
Yeah, we got the first 3 payments of the first one, and we got the first payment of the second loan. All right, all on time.
Yeah, and how long are those loans for? Remind me again.
12-year
12
loans.
Okay.
So
So you would be looking at having to apply for additional grant money, though, rewriting a grant and trying again.
there's a variety of ways that we could do that. We could do that we apply for another grant. We could even do it in such a way that if the county was so inclined, if they wanted to loan, let's say $3 million, $3.5 million, again, all of that's paid back plus at an interest rate negotiated, and we could continue to do then phase 3 as well. And that would guarantee whether there is a broadband grant money or not, that the third part of the project could continue to move forward. I'm not saying that's what you should do. All I'm saying is that there's a variety of things. And again, that's what's always the most attractive, is that the county and Bug Tussle could continue to try to go for PSC grants. And I think that's a smart thing to do. But then from a timeline standpoint, you're beholden to whether PSC decides to grant money or not. If you decide to take a more active approach and do it from a financing standpoint with the county, then the county with Bug Tussle, then you can move forward with the project and know that we have a good history of making those payments. And again, you get all of that money back plus interest, and we continue to have better internet accessibility for the county. But that's a discussion for a different time.
What if, I'm not saying, but what
No.
if like 6 years down the road, things don't pan out? How do we get that money back?
Well, on the towers, it's pretty easy.
I'm sorry?
On the towers, it's pretty easy.
Towers and the fiber, it's pretty easy.
Well, fiber, how would we get it on the fiber? Is the fiber,
That's an asset.
is it worth?
All I'm going to say very
Okay.
simply is yes.
Well, I don't own any.
So, yes.
Not yet. Okay,
So those both towers and fiber a very good asset to have.
Because
I
I know
mean-
the towers, for example,
Mhm.
we could easily resell those to AT&T.
You could sell them to AT&T, you could sell them to, and I don't know if Ed's getting them, but I used to get regular phone calls from K2 and American Tower and others asking if we had any county-owned towers that we wanted to sell. And from a emergency management standpoint in 911, that was never something that we should be looking at because then we don't control that. But yes, if you have assets that you don't need to have county equipment up on, that would be a very valuable asset. I'll give you an example is that typically, and this is from an industry standpoint, typically a tower costs approximately about $250,000 to $275,000 to construct. If it has one tenant, you've easily made your money back. And if you have two tenants, you're close to doubling your money.
Other questions? So, Mr. Kunish.
You referred to the reports, quarterly reports.
Uh-huh.
Who are they going to? Is anybody else getting them? I haven't seen one since March.
Gotcha. I know that I used to get them. I'm not sure who has signed up, but if you want, I can get your email over to Melody Schutz, who's our community relations person who puts together those reports.
Okay. And then second, recently, like in the last 2 weeks, I believe this building has fiber running to it, although I don't think it's hooked up yet. And I know they were looking at the highway building. And of course, the next question that was coming is, what about Winter Park? I understand you can't drill through the bedrock, but what's the next best plan?
We've looked at a couple different things and I'll first start with, we now have connection to not only this building, but also the City Hall for Kewaunee. Those have been brought into the building. As for the highway, as well as Kewaunee Winter Park, as you're already aware, the amount of rock there makes things extremely difficult, but eventually we will get to the highway shop. We're just trying to figure out how, because again, the drilling through rock is incredibly expensive. As for Winter Park, there's a couple different things we could be looking at. And I was talking to our custom solutions person, and what we could possibly do is, and again, if the county is willing to help, is we could put a tower up right against to where the chalet is. And we could either then, and here's the difficulty of topography for those that may or may not be aware regarding towers. If you think of Winter Park, it's in a valley and it's surrounded by trees, which therefore is probably two of the worst things you can have. But what we could do is put a tower up by the chalet, and we could either try to put another tower up at the top of the hill, but that's going to be a little bit difficult unless there's an easy way to get equipment to put a pad there that we could then put a tower up at the top of the hill. So then that could connect with the West Kewaunee Tower, because then we've gone above the depression of where the chalet is. Or if we were to go over kind of by the highway shop, if we could somehow get a direct line signal from the chalet to the highway shop, well, once we connect with fiber, well, then that would make that easier. Or if there is a tower just across the street, I believe, I forget who's the property owner. If you continue to go, and I'm going to screw that up, north along, is that A? But if you go past the bar and go up there, there's a tower that's on one of those adjacent properties. Maybe we could connect that way and then connect to the Kewaunee Tower. So we're looking at a couple different ways, but again, either way, it's gonna need some towers to be involved to try to address that. I've had a couple of those conversations with Dave because I know the difficulty of trying to do credit card transactions during Winter Park. And so that's been the difficulty. And would love to get a fiber line there, but there's two things that make that very difficult. One is the rock and two is the river. To cross rivers are incredibly expensive. Almost as expensive as boring into rock. As well as if you're going under a river, more often than not, you need DNR approval as well. I'm sorry? Again, I think that would be possible depending as to who owns the bridge that goes over the river. Is that the county or is that the township? I'm gonna guess that might be the township, so we'd have to get approval there. But even if we do that, we're gonna need to bore rock, or if you're going to go above line, we're always a little bit leery about going above line just because of the exposure of those lines. But that's something that we can look at. The easier way is to try to do a tower.
All right, other questions? All right, very good. Thank you
If-
so much.
All right,
Yes, go
thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. Otherwise, if there's any other questions, I can give you my phone number and my email. So my email is scott.felt@btussle.com. And my phone number is 920-417-8902.
Oh, one other thing I forgot to ask you.
Yes, sir.
Scott Naskovich.
Naskovitz, yes.
He's leaving. Is there a replacement for him yet?
Yes, the new salesperson will be Nick Spalding, Spalding.
Well, hopefully he does as good a job as Scott.
I think he will. And we were sorry to see Scott go, but he had another opportunity that he couldn't pass up. And in the future, I wouldn't mind trying to bring him back.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is consider salary schedule for 25 to 28. Ed, you have comments on that, or is that a poll thing?
Well, I guess
Oh.
I'm gonna turn it over to Jamie or to Michelle, I see is here. There is a schedule prepared.
Mhm.
You'll see that they've got some history going there. Some proposals at 3.5%, 4% and 4.5%. Paul has put this together for us and he's costed it out, so there is a fiscal impact of that. I don't know, Jamie or Michelle, do you have anything you wanna add, propose?
It's, why isn't it on?
Mr. Chairman, before we get started, I just have a question on this schedule. Is the clerk of courts on a different election cycle than the other three people?
Yes, these three are in salary schedule 1, are going to be reelected in 24, taking over in 25. And then the clerk of court and the sheriff and coroner are on salary schedule 1A. Those will be up for election 2 years from now.
I know back in 2000, when this came up before this committee, the intent was to try to get all 4 elected officials on the same schedule. And there was an attempt to do that, but I see we're going to be falling out of cycle again in after 26 on the clerk of courts. Just to take that into consideration, I think we should look at trying to bring that salary in starting in 2027 in line so that all 4 of those elected officials are on the same level. Because otherwise the clerk of courts is going to keep going farther and farther and farther.
I think you're gonna have trouble because they're not on that same schedule. And you have to set them for a 4-year schedule. So it's gonna be hard to try and keep them locked in. You can do it for the next couple of years that are sitting out there, but when the clerk of courts is up for election in 26, then you're gonna end up with another redo salary schedule 1A, which will put you out another 4 years. So it's a difficult thing to be able to try and keep them in sync.
My mic is working now. Okay. So we did hand out that information from the last 2 times these salary schedules came up. And it is difficult, like Ed said, because we don't know what cost of living is going to do every 4 years. So that, yeah, it has been putting Becky behind. The last time last 2 times we were both given stipends to get caught up. I feel like at some point that's always going to happen, no matter what, because you just can't tell what the future brings. It also doesn't make sense if, the employees now the last 2 years have also gotten an increase more than we have. So we were just discussing that we felt 4% would be fair, and we had all agreed that that was palatable to us, which is why that sheet in front of you does show the 4% for fiscal impact at the bottom. I've noticed in my own department, and I can't speak for anyone else, but we just billed out for the conduit bonds, and my deputy makes more than I do on paper right now. And it's only going to get worse if we keep falling more and more behind them. And part of that is because she does take the insurance and I don't, but it's the other caveat of that is the reason I don't take the insurance is because it is now better to go through my husband's insurance. So it is just something we discussed. I'm happy, Michelle can come up here too and speak her side of it if she wants to, but.
Well, this is something the supervisors, I've made comments on this, as is well known and documented time and again. When we keep going higher every year with the percent of increases on top of steps, that just keeps rolling up. You're going to have, and I can't wait until we get into the union negotiations next with the sheriffs. I mean, we held that, Supervisor Poppy was there, we held the line on that, but this next go round, after the supervisors have, continually gone with a higher percentage than the union representatives were able to get. I can't wait till the next round, but anyway, are there thoughts on this? What are we gonna do? I don't know how you're gonna go lower with what has been done with other employees.
The other thing with the elected officials, their wage is not subject to any step plan either. That's built into the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at the schedule in front of me. I would be more inclined to look at the 4.5% increase over the next period rather than the 4%, just to make up for the step issue.
There a motion? Or what do we want to do?
I'd make a motion to authorize a 4.5% increase for 25, 26, 27, and 28 for the county clerk, the county treasurer, and the register of deeds.
4.5. That's what the motion is. Is there a second? There's a second. Discussion.
This is just straight 4.5 because there's no steps involved. And then we'll have to bring this back up in 2028 or
27. I guess you'd have to do it in order to be and have it in place, right? Or when would we bring it up again, Ed? 27, right? Yeah. So you'll be going 4.5 straight. Discussion?
Be fine to talk it over and either satisfy.
That's 4.5 per year for each of the 3 years. All right. Any other discussion? Yes.
Motion and second.
Yep. Right. That's correct. Yes. Is there further discussion? All right. So the motion on the floor is for 4.5%. For each of the 3 years, all in.
I request a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
Olson,
No.
Hoppy,
No.
Massler, Ramden,
Yes.
Kroll,
No. Sorry, no.
Augustine,
Yes.
Lucas.
No.
That's 4 no's, 3 yeses.
Motion fails. All right.
Motion that is.
And I'll second that.
Discussion of that motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Well, that was scattered. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, County Administrator's report.
Okay, you should have a copy of the report in front of you. Just a few things to cover. Going down to the area where it says resignation, we're talking program assistant, that's a public health office program assistant. And right below it, payroll technician, that's in the finance office. Under recruitment, county administrator, we're actually in the advertising phase of that. So that'll be advertised until January 8th. The emergency management assistant as of today was filled, position was filled internally. So we'll be looking at that in part of the next section of this agenda item. Highway commissioner, we conducted interviews last Monday, a week ago. We had 3 individuals that were brought in for interviews. After the interviews, I decided to re-advertise. So we'll be looking for another round of applications. And again, we're going to run that application until January 8th as well. Going down to judicial administrative assistant, that has also been filled as of actually last Friday. It's also an internal, so that will create another opening here. The program assistant for public health, as of today, that is also filled. And the others that you see there are kind of still in the advertising phase. The payroll technician, we're re-advertising that because as we said, the individual that we had hired decided to not continue in that position. Any questions about the reports here? I know. I did not think that they were qualified, no. That's our hope. If not, then we've got some other decisions to make, but right now it just didn't make sense to try and limp through with candidates that had a lot of holes in their resume. Anybody else?
Supervisor Poppy?
Yep.
You're on.
Winter Park, assistance, how are we doing for, Winter Park help?
We're getting some applications in, so they just have to go through the interview process with those.
Thank you.
All right.
Under item B, filling vacancies. So we have two new vacancies that we'll need to look at. And these were both involved in that internal transfer. So the first would be the Deputy Register of Deeds position would be open, and also one of our economic support specialists positions would be. We just filled one, as you can see up on the top of the form. We just filled one on November 27th. And one of the individuals that we had put in, I believe it was in August, has now decided to move to the emergency management position.
Okay, so you need a motion to fill those vacancies.
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
To fill
Supervisor
vacancies.
Kroll, second by Supervisor Poppy. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, next up, vacation deadline extension.
Yes, we did this maybe a month ago. In the clerk of court's office, we had a maternity leave. So one of the person, they were off for their roughly 10 to 12 weeks. I'm not sure exactly how much time the person was off. So the other person in the office did not get a chance to use up a vacation. So they're asking to extend the deadline to utilize the vacation beyond that normal period of time. So I guess that's the request, to be able to extend the deadline. Normally you can carry 40 hours over into another period, but in this case, there'll be more than 40 hours that would be hanging out there.
Your motion?
I'll motion.
Supervisor Kroll, second by Supervisor Augustine. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.
That's it.
Highway compensation for accepting increased supervisor responsibilities, Highway Department. You got that one, Ed, or is that?
I'll lead into that.
right.
We have the patrol superintendent and office manager here, Jesse Schley and Mary Meyer, and they're going to, I guess, discuss the issue with picking up the pieces now that Todd has left as of December 1st, and likely we're probably looking at 2 to 3 months before we're able to fill that position. So they're going to be having to carry the load. So I don't know, Mary, Jesse, who's going to be the spokesperson, but go ahead. Sure.
Together this afternoon, and hopefully you guys can follow that.
Just press the button. Yeah. Nope. There you go.
First of all, I want to say thank you for letting us speak tonight on behalf of Ed. And I'm Mary Meyer. I've been the office manager for the Highway Department for 15 years. Jesse has been in the Highway Department for 23 and the patrol soup for 7. The first flyer that I have here is the Highway Commissioner apply for the position. Basically, it talks about the description of the job, okay? And the salary range that this position is covering. I don't want to get too much into detail, but I just want you to be aware of the duties that the commissioner had specialized in. And then the second flyer is there was a transition period on Thursday, November 30th, that the previous commissioner went over with myself, Ed, and Jesse. And basically it was discussing all his responsibilities and how to get to where we need to be to keep the operation moving forward. Now, as you can tell, it's like a 6 to 7 page report. There is a lot of stuff in this. And I have a full-time job, so does Jesse. This is up and above our responsibilities. The next handout is the pay plan for 2023. I highlighted the highway commissioner. He was a step 12 at 4532 as of 2023. The next sheet is 2024 pay plan. And the highway commissioner, if he would have stayed, would have been making $47.60 an hour. Our proposal is, since we have a level of responsibility that has been increased, we are focusing up and above our wages. I know there has been a lot of discussion about our wages and that the hourly rate would be way higher than the administrator's salary. But like I said, this is a level of responsibility that has been increased. We are going to be attending more meetings. We are working with the solid waste operations. We're going to continue with the internal service fund and the highway operations. And we have a timeline of work commitments that we have to achieve. If you see that the current range for the highway commissioner position that was posted, the low end is $82,742. If I break that down in an hourly rate by 2,080 hours, it's $39.78. In 2023 pay plan, it's $39.24. In 2024, it's $40.81. Commissioner Every made $45.32. Next year, he would have made $47.60. Jesse and myself are recommending that we receive $3,000 monthly stipend, which is equivalent to 160 hours at $18.75. That $18.75 times 2 is $37.50, less than what the low end of the commissioner would be making as advertised. If you project a little bit further, the $82,742, 4 quarters in a year, we're counting December, January, and February, they would make $20,685.50. Our total amount would be $18,000. The next handout is our survey of county perform activities. I work with our auditors to put this together. The highway administration is $319,783.87. The second page is the breakdown of that number. Okay. Our net administrative expense over our total maintenance expense is a interest of 6.19. So what the state does is they take all 72 counties, they take that and average it, and that's what they charge on their state jobs. So for instance, you go to the last sheet, the state lets us charge them 4.39% on all jobs related to the state. On our county, we're a business ourselves, so we charge 4.5%. And our customers, like the municipalities, other county departments, we charge 3%. The admin fee is absorbed through the overhead rate. We have a lot of invoices that come through, and I cannot remember exactly, but Paul might be able to help me. I think last year we received on reports and records where this account would go under was like $166,000. So $18,000 is not a huge amount, and we're able to keep the operation moving along.
I don't disagree at all that there should be an increase. I mean, during the time period. The only questions I have, I guess, as I look at it is, for example, if we were to take what you're requesting, I guess I have 2 questions. If we were to take what you are requesting, that would, and let's say it extended a year, that would be $72,000 additional. And while I don't disagree that there's significant additional duties, that's basically an extra person, so the amount is almost equivalent. I mean, it's lower than a commissioner's salary, but it's when there's a vacancy, you do take additional responsibilities. I don't disagree at all, and you should be compensated for that. I'm just not, but I don't think you would disagree that there are things. It's not the same in a vacancy. You will take on additional duties, Jesse will take on additional duties, but you won't be doing, between the two of you, you won't be doing the same amount of work as if there were 3 people. So I think there'd be the other supervisors probably aren't as cheap as me, but I think there would be some discussion maybe on the amount. The other question I have, I guess Jesse must be okay with this, is Jesse is the patrol superintendent. So I'm not sure how we, nothing personal to you, but I'm not sure how we arrived at the same additional amounts. You understand what I'm saying?
Totally.
Okay, because usually we just talked about this, people, in the department, deputies making the same amount. So I would have, my personal opinion is I would have seen some difference on that. But anyway, Supervisor Lukes, you're going to disagree with everything I just said, right? Oh, okay.
I guess the question is because winter is here. Days. Snowing for 2-3 days. You're gonna want somebody else helping you if you get roads. So that person might ask for additional hours. Compensation. All right, wrong.
What we have in place right now is what we had in place post Todd actually took care of this just before he left. We were supposed to put up for fellow employees to volunteer, be on call. A $300 stipend plus their hourly wage if they work for that. So I've been promoting it to the guys. I'm actually having a meeting tomorrow with the employees over our winter schedules. He was open to volunteering for the on call. As of right now, my gut feeling is telling me I have 4 to 5 guys that are willing to volunteer. Previous reimbursement for the on-call with the $300 stipend. It was changed this year to a $300 stipend plus the hours they work. More guys were receptive because in the past, if they took the $300 stipend and did not close over the weekend, they closed. Now they're actually getting paid for their hours for working. And they're more willing to help out. And I did have a couple guys that just flat out before that even was posted. When we heard that I was going to be leaving us, already admitted to me that they would volunteer help. Conversation with Eddie and Todd before Todd left. Eddie had also brought to my attention if nobody did volunteer, that it is too much for one person to take on by themselves. Point a couple people that they would each get a weekend a month or whatever it might be, but the whole platform. It does come with challenges and conflicts. So I already know if there's a bigger storm that's going to be. I'm scheduled off that weekend. It's a big storm that Friday, Saturday. I'll be there working because I need everything all done. So there's gonna be. I talked to the guys already. To be more discussion now. We are working out a plan on how to make this work for moving forward. Hopefully, we have groundwork set after this year. But we have a plan of creating help me out there.
Superintendent. I think she does a great job. I don't know if you can hear. I think she does a great job, but I've just kind of, yeah. Yes, sir.
You and Mary talked about this for a while. There is going to be a lot of administrative stuff
Okay.
that I will pass it on to her that I'm just not going to have time to be here.
So you're okay with the,
We can find
with their,
split that.
okay.
There will still be a separation based on their base pay.
All
So-
right. Yeah,
So there's
that
about a
too.
$5 an hour differential
I
between
just
them.
want to make sure that you're getting proper compensation for your distinguished role, okay? Being the senior officer in that department.
I'd like to make a motion that we would move it to 2,500 instead of 3.
That seem reasonable? Not as reasonable?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, there's a motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Massler will second. Discussion? If there are those that feel it's not enough, you can vote the motion down.
That would take place until the new commission.
That would be every month until there is a new commissioner in place. Right? Till there is a new commissioner.
That's the way it looks there.
And if it was mid-month, it would be, you know,
And they're just estimating 3 months, right?
as a pure estimate. I mean,
Yeah.
you could end up,
I'd prefer, personally, I'd prefer to 3,000, but
well,
that's only my opinion.
what's the feelings of the committee? You have a motion on the floor. I guess if you feel that it should be higher, you can vote against this motion and take another run at it. All right. You want a roll call? Or are you prepared to let's go?
Roll call. Do roll call.
Okay.
Olson,
Yes.
Poppy.
Yes.
Massler. Ramden. Kroll. Augustine. Lucas.
Yes.
Five yes, 2 no.
Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Next meeting would be scheduled for January 1st. What time? Well. Okay, I think we'll go to January 8th at 5:30. Unless I'm fine with January 1st. Well, we already set the 8th. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn. Augustine, Ramden. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.